Hello, my name's Andrew. I'm a music producer and a long-time anxiety sufferer. Each week I'm going to be uploading a video to this channel, Anxious Andrew, talking about all things anxiety. Today I'm talking about OCD, Obsessive Compulsive Disorder. You know, that thing where you have to wash your hands 3,000 times a day, or you need to alphabetize your DVD collection. Do people still have DVDs? That thing where you have to color code your bookshelf so that it looks like a beautiful cascading work of art. Those things can be traits of OCD, but they're not the whole story. OCD, when it's really bad, can completely take over your life and ruin your life. So if this all sounds like it would be interesting to you, please subscribe to my channel and stick around for the video. OCD relies on two things: intrusive thoughts and compulsions. An intrusive thought is anything that makes you feel uneasy, anxious, or disgusted. A compulsion is a behaviour that you perform to try to relieve these thoughts and the stress that they cause. Almost everyone has intrusive thoughts to some degree. I'm sure you can relate to that feeling you might get on the motorway where you think to yourself, I'm just going to crash into the central reservation, just see what happens. It's not that you're depressed or angry or you've lost your mind or something. You just have that urge and you just want to see what would happen. Or you could experience a similar thought when you're on a train platform. There might be someone standing close to the edge near the track and you see them and you think to yourself, I really want to push that person onto the track in front of the train. And again, it's not because you're some kind of serial killer. There's just this thought that pops into your mind. What would happen if I did that? Maybe I want to do that. These kinds of intrusive thoughts don't really cause us any issues and we tend not to be bothered by them. But some people might have intrusive thoughts where they see their family coming to harm, or they keep thinking about someone they love falling ill or getting cancer or something like that. Those sorts of intrusive thoughts can cause a lot of distress if you keep thinking about them over and over again. Even if the thought you have is innocuous, like you might be thinking about a door. But if all you can think about all day, every day is a door, and you just keep thinking door, door, over and over and over again, that can cause you a huge headache. Another sort of intrusive thought that could cause you a lot of distress might be around children. A lot of people, if they are looking after a child, might have visions of doing something really inappropriate to a child, and that can make them believe that they're evil. Compulsions are the behavioural side of this, and they tend to be less common, but a lot of people will know someone, or maybe have even experienced it themselves, where they'll feel a need to turn a light switch on and off several times, or an even number of times, or an odd number of times, or keep turning it on and off until it feels just right. Other common compulsions could be if you've tapped yourself with your right hand on your right knee, you might feel an urge to then even it out by tapping yourself on the left leg, on the left knee with your left hand. Another example of a compulsion could be rituals. You might have a very specific ritualistic shower routine, for example, where you have to do things in a very specific order. And if something trips you up, you have to go back to the beginning of your routine and start the whole process again. Another compulsion might be an uncontrollable need to constantly clean, where you're cleaning your house 5 times a day, or you are washing your hands to the point that they're, red raw. You also hear about people who become obsessed with things like, have I left the hob on? Did I lock the door properly? And so they have to check that they've turned the hob off, a ridiculous number of times. Or they might have driven all the way to the shop, have the thought, did I lock the front door? And then have to, abandon the shop, come all the way home to check that they've locked the front door. OCD might manifest itself as a sort of voice in your head that pretends it's your friend and is trying to help you. You might find yourself cutting deals with this voice in your head whereby you're saying, okay, if I perform all these rituals to some ludicrously high standard, then the voice in your head can somehow help me and protect me from the dangers of the world. But ultimately, this voice in your head isn't friendly. It's just bullying you. This kind of trade-off where you're doing something to prevent something else from happening can often be called magical thinking, because you might be flicking the light switch on and off 25 times to stop your mother-in-law from dying, when really, there's no connection between the two things at all. I've suffered with OCD for as long as I can remember. When I was a child, I would have these tics, things like I would blink in a certain way, I would like blink at people as they were talking to me, or I'd blink at the TV. And I'd also swallow in this particular way that kind of comforted me and made me feel better. These developed, and as I got older, they became things like knocking my elbow on door frames as I walked through them. The blinking kind of developed into this strange, like, half closing my eyes thing, where for some reason I would look at the TV and sort of close my eyes so I could only see half of the picture, and that made me feel better. When I was a teenager, these things started to become more apparent and more obvious to other people. There was one I had in particular, I remember, where every time I got in the car or out of the car, I would rub my head against the mirror, and that people started noticing that I was doing this head rubbing thing. I also found myself doing things more in front of people, so there'd be rituals that I'd have to do in front of a crowd of people or something. I think because it was embarrassing, it kind of became this like trade-off with OCD, where I was sort of saying, okay, I'll go over there in front of that group of people and embarrass myself by, I don't know, doing something like knocking my elbow on something several times so that they would notice. And then because I've embarrassed myself, now you must help me and protect me from, the dangers of the world. These things just got worse and worse and worse, getting really, really over elaborate and over the top, and happening more and more often, eating into more of my day, until eventually it got to a point where all I was thinking about, all I had was intrusive thoughts and performing rituals to calm down the intrusive thoughts. I'm not exaggerating. Every minute of every day, I was thinking intrusive thought and then performing a ritual to calm it down. And for me, I was obsessed with being sick. I was obsessed with being sick and that I'm ill. And I've got a phobia of vomiting, so this was very distressing for me. And so I would just, every minute of every day, I was thinking, I'm ill, I'm going to be sick, I need to do all these things to stop that terrible thing from happening. Simple things like taking the dog around the block for a quick walk just became unmanageable. There were so many slabs I'd have to walk on in a certain way, walls I'd have to knock in a certain way. You know, if someone else was walking and got in the way, this would cause me just an unimaginable amount of distress. I'd get really, really angry and upset about the whole thing. I might have to start the whole walk again. It was just out of hand. OCD can be extremely embarrassing. It also comes with a good, healthy dollop of shame. There were times where I just thought I was going crazy, but luckily my rational brain could always kick in and sort of, it knew that deep down this was all just waffle. It was just a problem that I was having. I was convinced that this was a sign of weakness, that I must somehow be a weak person, but no matter what mental health problem you're dealing with, whether it's OCD or anything else, it is never a sign of weakness. There were also a couple of reasons why I felt the need to keep my OCD a secret. The sort of OCD voice in my head it wouldn't allow me to reveal what I was going through. That was part of the deal, that I had to keep it secret so that no one else would know about it. Also, many of the things that I was thinking were shameful, and that's obviously just very hard to admit to and tell someone about. Putting a stop to OCD was for sure one of the hardest things I've ever had to do in my life. I think the only way I really managed it was because I became so desperate. I got to a point where I was suicidal, and so I felt that the risk of dropping my rituals came down because I felt that I had nothing to live for. I felt that I could risk not performing the rituals. Something terrible happening didn't really matter because I thought I wasn't going to be alive for much longer anyway. The first thing I did was to go and see my GP and tell them what I was going through and what was happening to me. They then referred me to a therapist, specifically a CBT therapist, more acronyms. A CBT therapist, that's cognitive behavioral therapy. In layman's terms, it's just about challenging the way you think. It's looking at how you think and then reframing it. My therapist encouraged me to carry out these experiments. So first she'd get me to write down a prediction. I'd have to pick something that was coming up in my week. So say I was going to the supermarket on Tuesday. I would then write a prediction. If I don't perform my rituals before going to the supermarket on Tuesday, I will be sick in the supermarket. So for me, that's what I was obsessed with. I was doing my rituals to stop myself from being sick. So if I didn't do my rituals and I go to the supermarket, that's risky. I'm probably going to throw up everywhere. So I'd write my prediction, and she would ask me to give it a percentage. How likely is that to really happen? So 100% means I'm definitely 100% going to be sick in the supermarket, or down to 0% would be I'm definitely not going to be sick in the supermarket. Then I would have to carry out the experiment. So this is the hard part, and this is the part that I could never get past previously when I'd tried to get rid of OCD in the past. I would manage to reduce my rituals, but never fully get rid of all of them. So it's very easy to carry out this experiment by halving the amount of rituals that you do, say, but just leaving a couple for safety. But that doesn't work. You need to get rid of all your rituals. Otherwise, it's just going to come back. Your OCD is just going to grow again and become just as bad as it was before. So I managed to get to a point where I could carry out these experiments without doing any rituals at all. So then the next thing she would ask me to do is write down the outcome after the experiment. So, were you sick in the supermarket? And of course, no, I was never sick in the supermarket. The final thing I would have to write down is a learning section. So what have I learned from the experiment? Which would always be something along the lines of, I've learned that I can go to the supermarket without doing my rituals, and I'm not sick in the supermarket. Doing these experiments over and over again teaches you that your predictions are wrong, basically. And you'll find that you might start off predicting you're going to be sick in the supermarket really high. You might start 90% likely that I'm going to be sick in the supermarket. But over time, over a few weeks, you'll find that that percentage just comes down and down and down. And actually, my full recovery came a lot quicker than I thought. I reckon 6 weeks of doing these kind of experiments, I went from being at a point where I was performing rituals every minute of every day to not doing any at all. If you would like to have a go at carrying out your own experiments, then I've included a link below for a worksheet you can print off to fill in yourself. Another useful thing people use to get over OCD is medication. If you speak to your GP, they can prescribe you some SSRIs, which is another acronym, which is Selective Serotonin Reuptake Inhibitor. What all of that means is that the medication will boost your serotonin levels. Serotonin helps promote, it stabilizes your mood, and it helps promote a feeling of well-being. So of course, if your mood is better, then it will be easier for you to fight the OCD bully and challenge these intrusive thoughts you're having. If you've made it this far in the video, then thank you very much for watching, and thanks for letting me share this with you. If you have any questions for me or suggestions for topics I could do in future videos, then please email anxiousandrewchannel@gmail.com. See you on the next one.